So, anyway.
So that just, also builds the reputation of the work we're doing there when he gets treated that way. And so that's one of the big things about Foothold is that we don't want our name lifted up so much. We don't want people to say, oh, look how great Foothold is. We want people to say, look how great the people in that community are, right? And so that's one of a real blessing is to see the fact that that's their response is not, oh, those Americans did this, but they're seeing it as people in their community, the leaders in their community, and they're respecting them and seeing it that way. So that is also really encouraging. That even though he turned it down because he's got plenty of other work to do,
right? He does.
We're grateful he turned it down. So that leads us up right to Jasiri, right? Is there anything else that we missed that we need to talk about before we get to Jasiri?
No.
Okay, so if you aren't aware already, Jasiri is a Swahili word for
bold, confident, and brave.
Right, period. We added that because, as we were researching this, many times the menstrual cycle, that period of a week and a month, is sometimes called the week of shame. And so we thought, what better word to completely contrast that than Jasiri. It just embodied everything that we hope young women get to be and experience. And so this word is, and I feel like this is also so relevant here in the United States because this is still a taboo topic, right? There's still issues with young women and all, women of all ages having access to menstrual hygiene that's affordable and sustainable. So, I wanted to ask you, Brad, to talk a little bit. Okay, first of all, I don't know if anybody out there knows, I know Mom, who started this. Like, a lot of people would think, oh, this is Sherry's project, right? Like, Sherry cares about women's issues. I'm a female. Why would? But actually, this project was started by Brad. Brad, and then he watched a video, and I'll let you talk about that. And then he and Pastor Sampson start connecting and start pushing this project. Well, while that was going on, Charity Krenia and I, our general manager on the ground, her and I were busy working on getting the soap up and going.
Right.
And we were like, yeah, this is a great project, but we don't have time for that. Okay. But Pastor Sampson and Brad, you guys just kept pushing and pushing the project, even when we were distracted by other things. And so I think that's I think it's so interesting because, we raised 3 boys. You don't have any daughters. And, what was it that really inspired you to start this project? What was it that made you interested in it? Because it really seems like, why you?
Right. Well, over time, just looking at water sanitation and hygiene issues, I would see this thing called period poverty, and I never really paid much attention to it because I'm thinking, well, that's a woman's issue, it's not my issue, and so why would I research that so much? And but then I started seeing more and more articles like on BBC and some other world newscasts about, this thing is real. And probably one of the places where I did my first research was in the UK. And a developed nation like the UK, period poverty there is worse than in some developing third world countries. And it's because of taxation, it's because of price, it's because of many different things. But it's huge in the UK. But I started doing a little bit more research because I'm like, wow, this is not a good thing. And so then I see this video on BBC called The Pad Man. And it is about this man in India, and we'll post a link to it. The original YouTube video is what inspired me, and I'll give you a brief explanation of the video. This man, he had some engineering experience, not much, but he had a regular day job, and so he was wondering, well, this thing that my wife goes through every month, she never talks about it. We've been married all these years, and she goes off in private. She doesn't talk about these things, and whenever I ask her even say anything about it, she tells me to shut up and go my own way. And but he says I was really intrigued by this, and he said then I began to do research, and I heard that and how it affected young women and women in my society. And typically in the Indian culture is that, and other cultures also, is that when women are on their monthly periods, they are considered unclean. So when they're considered unclean, they're not allowed to cook any food, they're not allowed to do anything that men are related to. Sometimes they're sent off to these places places called menstrual huts, or these small shacks where there's really no provisions or anything. They're just sent off to that shack for maybe 5 days during their periods, and then they can come back. And so, wow, I'm starting to think this is not good. This is really not good. And then
you started getting angry about it.
I started getting angry about it because it was just it's why is this happening? Why are they doing this? And then come to find out is that just due to especially there in India, there was a lack of affordability of washable sanitary pads, of not washable but disposables.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on very quickly, he took some pretty drastic measures. I'll leave for the video if you watch it. But his wife found him out, and she
found out what?
She found out that he was trying to make these disposable pads and make better pads.
So he was like trying to do this in secret of her,
right?
Because they both wouldn't want to talk about her.
No, they wouldn't talk about it.
They wouldn't want to talk about menstruation.
Right. So
okay.
so he's
but he was trying to help her, but she didn't
help her.
Okay.
And so he's looking at trying different materials. He's doing all this research and everything, and actually making these pads and everything. And it's like, how can I make a better one? And then finally, he made one that was affordable. He also made a machine that could produce them. The machine is very simple, and it can be mass produced and sent out to rural communities for a very economical price. And then they train women in these rural communities to make these affordable disposable pads for women.
Which is what we're doing right now, right?
Right. But anyway, his wife found out, and she divorced him.
She's
there's no way I can be married to a man that is this is a disgrace to me. So anyway, he went on, and his machine caught on, his pads caught on, and then next thing you know, his wife is watching a video just like I'm watching a video, and she says, "That's my husband." And she went on to listen, and wow, her husband is now producing affordable disposable pads for tens of thousands of Indian women, and changing their lives for the better. And so I won't tell you what happens from there.
I think it's a happy ending, though, right?
It is a very happy
I think there's something good that happens in their relationship, but so much irony, isn't it?
So I called Charity up, and I said, "Charity, this thing called period poverty," I said, "does it exist in Kenya?" And she says, "Oh, more than you know."
Yeah.
And so I said, "Okay, there I've been researching, and there are these washable sanitary pads. What can we do?"
You also, can I stop you? I want to ask you. You said one of the things that, and Sophia, thank you, called Period. That's a great documentary too.
Right? So yes, it is.
We'll put links to some of these documentaries. There's several that are really good. And one of the things you were really concerned about was girls dropping out of school, and not just dropping out, but the effect on their education, which is. So can you talk a little bit about that? Right.
Because when a girl reaches age of menstruation there in Kenya, life changes for her, and especially among the Maasai and the tribal communities, it really changes. But one of the things that happens is that number one, mothers don't even talk to their daughters about these things because it's so shameful. Yeah. So when daughters, we're talking about in Kenya right now, right? Okay. And these girls are horrified when they start their periods, and they don't know what's going on, let alone tell anybody about it or ask anybody about it. And so then they can't afford disposable products because it costs, you could feed a family of 4 people for a pack of pads for several days. Right. And so they can't afford them. They don't feel like they can go to their family to get support for them. And so one of the things that girls do is they resort to alternative methods, which are pretty
not sanitary, cause all kinds of medical issues. They are, we're not going to talk about how disgusting, not because they're disgusting, but because they don't have many options, and so you can just imagine not having and having to reuse and having to hide materials, how dangerous that becomes for their health, the things that they resort to in those situations.
So many of these young women, and we were able to find out firsthand from a woman that now helps us out in this Jasiri project, and but she actually had to drop out of school
Are you talking about Jennifer?
Yeah, Jennifer, because of her periods, and her mother had 4 or 5 other daughters in the family. The father wasn't around, so she just couldn't afford sanitary pads for them, and so she dropped out. And then once girls drop out, then they become prey to men. And as Jennifer's story, she became pregnant. But one of the things that's been going on, and this has increased, and it really bothers me, and the fact that these girls are they're so desperate to have sanitary pads because they want to stay in school, because they know if they don't have them, they go to school, they have accidents, they get embarrassed, shamed, and then they may never go back to school in that society. And then so they want these pads, and if they don't get them, they lose 50 to 60 days a year of school. And then when the girl falls behind, if there's a father at home, he sees that and he says, well, she'll be worth more to me back home. So he takes her out of school.
She's worth more to him in what way? What does that mean, Brad? When a father sees his daughter and says, hey, she's around the house, she's more beneficial. What does that mean?
Yeah, she not only becomes more beneficial duties around the house, but then also the dowry is still in effect.
Okay.
And so I can now marry my daughter off, and when I marry her off, then I amass cattle, or I amass sheep or goats.
In Kenya, the dowry is a reverse dowry.
Right.
So when many people think of a dowry, you think of kind of the Western or European dowries where it's usually a liability for the family. But in Kenya and Eastern Africa, you see where the father receives money for the daughter. And so having a daughter is financially beneficial in marrying her off, because basically her husband kind of pays the family for her absence. Like it could be in cattle, it can be in money, it can be in lots of different things. But usually it's a very large sum of capital of whatever sort.
And in traditional Maasai cultures, as a man gains more cattle, he gains more status, and when he gains more status, he can take more wives.
Right. So then he can purchase more wives.
So he just keeps just keeps perpetuating and going badly. So, but one of the things also is that the girls are so desperate to stay in school. We know that because these are rural areas and a lot of this is happening in the slums, that girls have resorted to selling themselves for sanitary pads. And what typically happens is that young men on these motorbikes, they make money. They can afford these things because they run motorcycle taxis. They befriend these girls, and these girls begin to say, oh, you have money. Can you help me out with this? Can you buy me pads? So he says, well, yes, I'll provide any of those things for you. Just stay with me and I'll buy them for you. And then next thing you know, not very soon after that, he then looks to her and says, I'm not buying those for you anymore. She says, well, I can't afford them. He says, well, then we have this other transaction. And so then these girls end up selling themselves to these boys. And
what we learned too there was that oftentimes the going rate for prostitution was 50 cents. So the girls would have to prostitute themselves more than one time to be able to afford pads. And so these girls are so desperate to stay in school, right? That they're willing to, prostitute themselves because they believe so much in their education, which is just so heart-wrenching.
Yeah, and this is just not among the Maasai. It's in the cities, it's all over. And so I heard about all this, and Charity did the research for me, and I said, Charity, find us somebody that's already doing this in Kenya, because with Foothold, we don't like to reinvent the wheel. If the wheel's already invented, at the end of the day, all wheels roll. They just look differently, right? And so we're not going to invent another wheel. If we can go to someone and gain knowledge from them and be trained by them, and then transition that, but then not only that, make train our own trainers so that they can train others. So we were able to send Charity and the seamstress to an organization there.
Charity's our general manager.
Right, our general manager.
We sent her to training and she had to see how these groups ran their business too.
Right. Right, they can see how the business runs, how they're made. They got all the templates and everything, and so with about $750, we were able to buy a treadle sewing machine, Foothohld sewing machine like my grandmother used, and get the initial flannel and materials from Nairobi to make these washable sanitary pads. And so then we were just, who's going to produce these? So our initial project ended up going to the Maasai ladies group, the Namalak ladies. We took that sewing machine 10 miles off the main road back into those dusty lands, and so and taught these ladies how to make these pads. And then one of the other things that we discovered too is that as we started making these pads is that
we have one here, don't we?
Yeah, we can give these girls all the pads we want to give them, but they don't have underwear to put them in, and so
it's not always traditional, right? Like in certain tribes, and like the more traditional they are, the less likely the girls have underwear to wear them, and so we just decided with the kits to always provide underwear, just to dispel any kind of stigma or anything that's just part of the kit now. And so the price of those increased just a couple dollars to make, it used to be $3, which just includes the kit, but now it's $6, which also includes the underwear.
Right. And so so one of the other things that we also wanted to do was educate girls, that when these men, you don't have to do this,
Yeah.
You don't have to go to these men and sell yourselves for these. And if there's a man that is doing these things to you or wants to do these things to you, there are people you can tell, and they can go to their school. The school makes it a safe place where they can tell the authorities there and get help. And so we're also providing that education. And then not only that, but we're also training some boys, because boys shame the girls there. But they're shaming them because they don't know any better. All they know is that these girls go through this thing, and heaven forbid if they have an accident, because if they do, then it is over, because then the boys will just...
There was even a recent case in Kenya where a girl died by suicide after her teacher shamed her. So that awful, sad, tragic story has also brought this out in the open, and to be, to shine a light on the injustice of it. And luckily that tragic story seems to have had a positive impact on just people addressing it and being aware and concerned. And can you talk, so we talked about COVID. I want to talk a little bit about the effect of COVID on this project and what's happening in Kenya right now. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's happening? What is the effect of all these girls not being in school?
Right. So these girls being home, they are typically left also, since they're at home, they're helping out to raise their siblings. And then if in the occasion that their mother or father are not in the picture, some of these girls, which we have this case, we have an 18-year-old young woman who's raising six siblings. And so she's desperate. She has no job. She's trying to go to school. And so how is she going to feed her siblings who've not had food in a week? And so once again, it's easy to go to, it's not easy, but it's the prostitution side of it is the other side of that, to where that, for 50 cents, they'll sell themselves, not just for pads, but to feed their siblings.
Exactly.
And so Samson and Charity were aware of these girls, and the pregnancy rates during the COVID shutdown are astronomical.
We actually have a report from the Kenyan Health Department, and it's thousands. I mean, just thousands, broken down by county and sub-county. And at one point I said, Charity, are there even this many young girls in this community? It was unreal, the number of, child pregnancies. Let's not even call them teen pregnancies. Many of them are just exceptionally young. And so that's one of the reasons we are targeting and doing this T-shirts, and we're really putting it out there because we really want to target this issue. So Charity told you some good news about there's young women that TCA through Foothold they have been following up on and providing support, food, pads, and masks, and making sure soap. Thank you, and making sure that they have enough food. And so how are those girls doing?
Zero
what?
Zero pregnancies.
Yes,
So that is so huge because these girls are learning that they don't have to sell
Wow.
themselves to support their families.
And they're not just they're also getting emotional support too.
Right.
The TCA mentors these young women,
Yeah.
so they
Many of these girls too are learning how to sew Jasiri pads.
Yeah,
So it's
right,
kind of
right,
a
right.
vocational training for these
Yes.
girls once they're connected with TCA. That during this lockdown time, that they can come there and learn how to sew basic things and help make Jasiri pads, and then the beads and the necklaces.
Yeah,
that we're
so
selling.
if you notice, it's kind of dark, but I'm wearing some of these these earrings that they have made, and if you could see my desk, it is covered in jewelry. So I wanted to also mention that these young people are part of. So there's boys and girls actually a part of this, and the dance group before COVID hit, they were planning on developing dances and theater, these skits to talk about Jasiri and to talk about periods and to promote equity, menstrual equity. So we're really excited for them to be able to come back together once things are safe. But there's a group of these who meet and practice safe social distancing, but they've been making beautiful jewelry. They've been sewing aprons and bags and purses, and those things will be listed soon on our Foothold Market page. So I'm saying Foothold Market, and I maybe haven't announced that too, is that Namlock Soap Company, that name is disappearing, and because we're going to all these other areas, Foothold Market is our new name, because Namlock Soap just didn't contain all the things. As we're expanding into other items and really trying to empower them to create a market where they can sell things for a better price for themselves. And so the money raised from aprons and bracelets, the apron auction we had a couple months ago, and the aprons we sold, that money went right into making pads and masks. Those are the two biggest things they need. So they bought fabric for those things. So we sent over to them around $700, and then right away they went and bought materials for those things. So just know they know this is critical right now, and they're putting all of their energy into it. Should we show them a little bit what a kit looks like?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it, or you want me to?
You can.
Okay, so when they get a kit, this is what it looks like, and they keep improving and making them cuter as they go. But so this is the kit itself has it is ripstop nylon, which is water barrier, so they have a place to store their pads when they're not, after they're used, and to keep them safe. And so then they receive three of these pads that have little snaps on them. And in addition, they get a little sachet bag that they can store kind of separately those used pads. So 3 pads, they can wash them. And like Brad said, he didn't say her name, but Jennifer, who had the really tragic story, is one of our great leaders. And she goes into the schools with Charity, and she teaches the girls about proper use, how to wash these, how to store them, how to use them so that they don't get infections. And then she also just empowers them. And so even though Jennifer couldn't finish school herself, she goes into the schools.
Right.
And it's so exciting to see her story of redemption. And we're also, and we haven't talked about this, we'll talk about it later, Jennifer has an opportunity to finish school, right?
Right.
And so that's another part of the story. There's so many things for us to talk about.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I wanted to show you kind of what that kit looks like, and plus underwear is included as well. And we'll be, at our update banquet, we'll be showing some videos of Jennifer talking to the girls, teaching them and passing out the underwear, and just how intently interested they are in what she's doing. So just wanted to kind of make sure I updated that part too.
Right.
There's one girl named Alice. Alice is about 18 years old, and Alice is one of the girls in the group and TCA, and she is beautiful little thing, and her dream was to be a fashion designer. Well, she's an orphan, and she is living with her grandparents, and they could not afford high school tuition, so she had to drop out of high school. She's not been able to finish high school, but while she's been involved in these projects, she has learned to sew. And she's one of the designers behind the jewelry and the aprons. And so even though she gets to use those skills, I'm really excited that she's a part. She's such a hard worker and just a real sweet girl. So that's just an example of how this project is helping in many different ways, holistically, these young people who are at risk.
So I guess that one of the other things I want to communicate is that, especially when I talk about this project to other men, they just turn beet red. I mean, it's like, why are we?
Yeah, when you get to the
about
period
this?
part, they're like,
Yeah.
oh.
And I kind of get emboldened by that because I feel like, all around the world, men are making decisions that affect women in these areas. And women have very little say-so about these things. Yeah. And so while I don't know what they go through each month,
right.
I see how it affects them, their education. When women are sent into menstrual huts, they're taken out of society and they're no longer raising their families. They're no longer contributing to societies. When girls are pulled out of school by dads who want them to just capitalize off of them, it's not fair. It's not right. And so men aren't speaking up about this.
But you are.
I am. And so I want to encourage other men to stand up because, we can have a voice in this and we can help change systems and governments and things that affect women in these areas and make a difference. And I believe that's the way God would have it. And so
that sounds like a challenge, Brad. Are you challenging
men?
Well,
it's a challenge number one.
It is a challenge, right?
Yeah, I'm
Are you challenging? You want to make a direct challenge to men out there?
I don't know how to challenge them other than when I just sit down and start talking about it. And the more blush they get, the more I pour it on and say, you need to join me in this. You need to join us in this and help. You don't have to understand it. Just help us. Against this.
I think it's a really attractive thing for a man to wear one of these T-shirts. Don't you think? Don't you think that women would, young men out there, don't you think ladies would be impressed with you wearing one? Remember, these are unisex. These are not just female shirts, right? You're wearing one, right? And so you're challenging them to buy, not just buy a T-shirt, but we also, if you get a T-shirt, there's some talking points on the tag. So we do encourage you to advocate, to share it, to talk about it, to open up a conversation so that it's not a shameful.
Right. Yeah, and we need advocates, and young women need advocates all over the world. And so in the future, and I've actually been introduced to someone from India. He is local here, and he actually knows someone who knows the pad man. And so before talking with this person, I said, I want to go to India and meet this guy. Because not only that, because we have the washable sanitary pads, but then I also see the opportunity if we could purchase one of these machines and get the materials, then we can bring that to Kenya and we can train another women's group to begin making affordable disposables for those who can afford those. And so it's just you think about these things, you think about them, and then next thing you know, somebody comes along that can help you make that connection. And then so next thing you know, maybe when this crisis lifts, we may head to India. Who knows?
You dream. I know that is the dream of yours, is to go there and to meet him. And actually, he has a TED Talk too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has a TED Talk.
So I posted a video from Pastor Sampson talking about the impact of the project on their area, and he talks at the end, if you go to the very end of the video, he talks about why, as a man, he is advocating for this project, why he's behind it, which I felt was also something that was very touching. And so we really challenge you, men, right? Like Brad's challenging you. He's started this, and we want to see more men wearing these shirts, right? Talking about it, dispelling the myth. And so thank you, Brad. Thank you for pushing. Thank you for getting angry. Thank you for not letting the busyness of other good things, right? That you pushed this so it happened. And so I'm really grateful that you did that. And I just think, it's important that we also recognize men who are doing these kind of things, that are advocating for women, and we need men to be a part of the solution.
Well, and now that, Sherry came on board with Foothold full time in June, just a little over a year ago, and so she, along with our summer intern, that is helping us get our Instagram and Facebook audiences built up and helping us promote things, and then with Taylor, who's helping us out, along with Sherry, they're working on these ways to promote. T-shirts and things like that is not my thing, but they have been able to take this and take it so far within just a month or so,
Mhm.
and to help promote it and everything. And I'm so grateful to you and to all of them. Because and to Charity, you and Samson were supposed to join us tonight, so I don't know. It's 8 hours. It's like 2 in the morning.
We've been on here for almost an hour, and we said we were going to try to keep it a half hour. So we've gone over a bit. So we're so grateful for those of you who stuck with us and watched this, and you can watch it later. We're going to be doing some more live videos like that, just keeping you updated. They'll probably be a little shorter because we just had so much to talk about and update you all on.
Right.
So please, thank you so much for all of you who commented, for those of you who are getting t-shirts, and that I will be delivering those starting tomorrow, the next couple days. And those of you who wanted them picked up at Roast, you should be able to find them at Roast after noon tomorrow. They should be there, probably earlier, but be safe to wait till noon at lunchtime to go see if your shirts are there. And look for an email. I will verify with you that it's there and ready for you. So we are so grateful to all of you.
Yeah.
We have so much more to talk about too. So more stories to come, and take a look at our website. We've got stories coming up. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, and stay tuned for the giveaway that will be coming up very, very soon.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
We love all of you.
Good night.
Good night.